Heart, ready, begin.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Roll call, please.
Director Atkinson,
Here.
Director Regan,
Here.
Director Commanding,
Here.
Director Tebow. I'm sorry, he's here. Kathy, I'm sorry, Kathy. That's okay. Director Harris.
Here.
Okay. Phyllis Stanley, can you hear us, Phyllis?
Hi, Phyllis, are you there?
Hold on, let me just text her over here. Phyllis, can you hear us? You see you're on, but
Yeah, these are public. See, it shows that she's on.
I did.
Excuse us while we work with our technical difficulties.
Phyllis, can you try again?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hi, Phyllis.
Good morning.
Craig Parton.
Here.
If anybody wants to make any comments or has any questions, if you'd please fill out a card there on the table in the back, so that Rob can call on you.
Thank you, Patty. Adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Moved by John, second by Kathy. Any discussion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. We're on public comments. I don't have any speaker requests.
Mr. Chair, Nancy Barnett, the president of the 40th Street Mutual Water Company, contacted me before the meeting and has a letter for the board. I'll report on it in my report, but it's in lieu of her speaking publicly now. So I'll just let you know I'm going to give an update of what her concerns are.
Great, thank you. Patty, do you have any speaker requests? Going on to special presentations, there are none. We're on consent calendar. Consent calendars, item A, B, and C. Payment of bills through September 20th, 2019. Treasurer's report for the month ending August 31st, 2019, and minutes of August 28th, 2019. I'll give you a moment to look at those. I know that they were all in your packets. Okay, board, are you ready to approve the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, and C?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Kathy. Second. Second by Adam. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We're on item 7, advisory committee report. That is in our packet. And I know most of you have already read it. I'll give you a few more minutes to take a look. And Dennis, or Derek, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Just state your name and
Derek Jurasic, I am the advisory committee vice chair.
Great. And we've seen your report. Any discussion?
No, I think it speaks for itself, as Dennis always says. Available for any questions or comments that you have.
He has never spoken to us yet, but we
Yeah.
have read it. Any questions of Gary?
Nope.
See no questions. Thank you for your time, Gary.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your service.
You know, I will point out, I think is, just informational, is at the very end of your report. Larry Rosamond, who's been a technical advisor for us, has decided to step down for personal reasons. It notes there his reasons why, but just put it in record that he has stepped down. We as a committee are thinking how we should approach that if there's a replacement.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question.
Yes, John, Derek?
Derek, on item 8A, and this is to staff also, do we include the AP numbers when these well applications are submitted and no duplications or anything? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. We're now on item 8, action items, well application, small pumper qualifying and monitoring wells.
I'll take this one. Good morning.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, Matt.
On page 23 of your agenda packet is our typical resolution regarding the approval of small pumper qualifiers and also replacement wells. So attached to the resolution is Exhibit A. And this lists 5 small pumper qualifier, all 5 are domestic wells. And then there's 1 replacement well, which is also a domestic well. I should point out that the board packet that was circulated on the website and emailed out last week had an error in the Exhibit A, but your packet that you're looking at now reflects that revision already. And for the public, there should be a copy at the front. So it's basically changing the sub-area for the last 2. This is on APN number 3268-001-005. It should be in the central envelope area, sub-area. We had it as the southeast. So that's the only change to that, and staff is recommending that the board approve this resolution.
Okay, any discussion? We're on item 8A. Is there a motion to approve resolution number R 1928, small pumper qualifying well applications?
So moved.
Motion made by John,
Second?
second by Kathy. Any discussion? No speaker form. See no discussion, no speaker forms. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion's carried unanimously. We're on item B, wells application, new production, and new points of extraction applications. And Phyllis, I think it's your show on this one. Hi, Phyllis.
You there, Phyllis?
Phones can't hear at this point.
Phyllis, can you hear us?
Now I can, yes. We cut Matt off in mid-sentence, but I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Phyllis, this is Rob Howe. Have you been able to hear us through the meeting, or did you just come back on?
Yes, I heard everything up until Matt talking about the table for the small pumper qualifications. So I heard everything up to then.
Okay, and we approved resolution R 1928, the small pumper applications, and now we're on item B, well applications for new production, and you're presenting on that.
I am. Thank you very much. So on page 57 is the resolution for the approval of the items that are shown on the next page, page 59, on an Exhibit A. They consist of 2 new production applications and 1 new point of extraction. I'd like to say a couple of quick things. The first new production is domestic well. It's very typical to what we have been looking at in the past. The second one actually says industrial use of well. And I wanted to just simply point out that for that, even though it says a meat processing plant, what we're looking at here is really a much smaller operation with a very limited number of animals. They do specific slaughtering and bleeding according to customs and religious practices, and they do it one at a time. They maintain animals on site, but only, again, a small number. So their estimated water use is low. They will be metering their well, and they are required to pay a replacement water assessment. I just wanted to go through that quickly just because it was industrial water use, and we don't see as many of those. For the new point of extraction, that is another straightforward request. You just approved Donald and Cindy Ross as small pumpers, according to the judgment in your resolution that you just approved. And so now they have the opportunity to drill their own well. They had been sharing a well in the past, and they would like to have a well on their own property. So that new point of extraction is for them. So those are the 3 applications that we have recommended for your approval.
Thank you, Phyllis. Any questions of Phyllis, Board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve resolution number R1929 for new production, new points of extraction applications as discussed by Phyllis and in your packet?
I move that we approve resolution R19-29.
Thank you. Motion made by Adam, second by Dennis. Any discussion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We're now on item C, groundwater banking and recovery storage application, Rosamond Community Service District. And Phyllis, you're on.
Thank you very much. I'm so proud to say that we have our first 2 applications for storage agreements in the basin, and we have taken a look at them and provided memoranda for your board packet. We have not, because these are the first 2, we've not yet finalized the legal wording of the storage agreements. I mean, after we do that the first couple of times, I think this will be much more routine, but in the short term, we are asking simply that you review our memoranda and then perhaps direct us to prepare the legal agreement. With respect to the project proposed by Rosamond Community Services District, this is really a great recycling wastewater project. Previously, this wastewater had been evaporated in ponds and lost from the system, and now rather than evaporation, Rosamond CSD is going to be providing upgrades to their wastewater treatment facility and improving the water quality such that it can now be percolated back to groundwater, providing some replenishment back to the groundwater system. We do have a series of conditions of approval on there, and although those are on page 102 of your board packet. That looks like a really long list, and I wanted to advise the board that we're not requiring anything in addition to what is already being required by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We're simply adhering to those requirements and asking that we also be provided with the reports as they are provided to the Regional Water Board. We don't want to provide an additional level of regulatory effort after they are already complying with water quality requirements from the Regional Water Board, but we would like the opportunity to be able to review their monitoring reports at the same time that they submit them to the board. So with that, I will answer any questions that you might have on the Rosamond CSD request for storage agreement before talking about Little Rock.
Any questions, Board?
I've got a question, Phyllis. This is John Plandry. How is it calculated when you start with this certain amount of water to be banked? how do you figure in the evaporation loss and the final amount of water that reaches its destination?
It's a good question, and there's a variety of things to consider. So the for this particular storage agreement request, it's a little bit easier because with wastewater you have some level of certainty of the timing and the flows to the ponds. What you don't know is what long-term infiltration rates will be or can be maintained, although they'll want to maintain those ponds because they'll want to be able to use those ponds for disposal of their treated wastewater. So it's a relatively straightforward calculation if you know the surface area and the timing that water is exposed to the atmosphere for any given time during the year. We can use readily published reference evaporation rates for that. For other storage agreements, it's a little more problematic. There are going to be losses that are associated with these projects. That's just the nature of groundwater banking. We have reserved in our storage agreement rules and regulations to continue forward with the minimum 10% loss associated with these projects going forward. I can tell you that for the most part, you will have less than 10%. So 10% is good. We feel comfortable with that.
So the only moving number is really the evaporation number.
Yes, I mean, there's some uncertainty associated with conveyance losses, not with this particular project, but perhaps with others. And there's also some uncertainty associated with subsurface losses. I was particularly looking at that with respect to Rosamond, given that they are near the edge of the groundwater basin. So just to account for all of those uncertainties and the circumstances associated, it's relatively straightforward to provide a reasonable storage loss to the project, and then we don't have to worry about when things are going in the ponds and how much is going in the ponds. It just sort of simplifies the ongoing monitoring process.
Very good, thank you.
Phyllis, this is Rob, and I know it's in your report, but just so the public's aware of it. Within our valley, we've had issues many years ago with wastewater being put into the ground and causing the nitrate plumes. How is this different?
This is very different than that. This is a complete and total upgrade of their treatment plant. They will be producing denitrified effluent. They have upgraded that. There's quite a bit of information about the upgrades of the treatment plant in their memorandum that we have attached to our, it's not in your packet, but it's on the website that we've attached to our memorandum. And it provides that the regional board is taking a very close look at this. So it's the water quality requirements for the effluent disposal is already being carefully looked at and regulated by the regional water board. There will be monitoring required for water quality to demonstrate the performance of the upgrades to the treatment plant, and there'll be ongoing groundwater monitoring of the areas that had been previously impacted with respect to wastewater. So we feel comfortable that the Regional Water Quality Control Board is doing their job, and we are providing sort of a second tier of review for that.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing, Alice. What about the unregulated constituents?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. What about the regulated what?
The unregulated constituents in the wastewater. Not everything is currently regulated in the wastewater discharges. So the emerging constituents that are not currently regulated, that will be regulated in the future. How are we addressing those?
I don't know if those are a part of the sampling protocol associated with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I can check on that, Adam. I'm sorry not to know that off the top of my head.
Well, as an example is, and I know a lot of people understand what the PFAS is, you know that it's being regulated
Yes.
currently at the federal
Yes.
and the state level, and it is
Yes.
a major concern in wastewater. So is the Lahontan Board going to go back and revisit the permit when that regulations becomes effective?
Well, so here's the thing, the monitoring and reporting program for the project has not yet been finalized. Rosamond is working directly with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the reason that we have, again, this long list of conditions is that these are the requirements of the Regional Board of Rosamond to put together for their monitoring and reporting program. So we can follow up with them to make sure that there are, a robust level of constituent monitoring associated with the project. We can report back to you what's being required of the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the board can discuss if we would like to have any additional conditions associated with that. We will have another bite at the apple on this because we will be providing to you a storage agreement, again, a legal storage agreement between you and Rosamond in the future. And so give me the opportunity, I've made a note of it, Adam, and give me the opportunity to sort of check in with Rosamond and the regional board on this issue.
So what are we approving today?
Well, there isn't a resolution for this memorandum because we don't have a storage agreement. That would be what you would approve today. I guess I'm providing this in some ways for information, but also to make sure that the board feels comfortable with the two projects such that we would prepare the legal storage agreement to bring back to you and to answer any questions that you might have on the projects.
Presumably you'll vote on the resolution next month and have the storage agreement to you by then.
I do want to, I think the board should see some sort of a presentation on, I get the nitrification treatment, but we want to understand of what level of treatment of this wastewater will go through, when the operation is going to start, a little bit more information about the monitoring, the requirements by the Lahontan Board, and the nature of these requirements. Are they going to change as the regulations change? I mean, I understand that Lahontan Board has the authority to regulate putting anything into the groundwater basin, but unless I'm wrong, and I think there is an obligation on this board to protect the water quality of the groundwater basin, right?
That sounds great. And so again, right now, this memorandum just simply mirrors the requirements from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So give me the opportunity, Adam, to check in with them to make sure what constituents they are monitoring for. I will identify an additional list of unregulated constituents that we can consider and bring back a recommendation to the board next month. Would that be acceptable?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Phyllis, this is Rob. I'm looking at nodding of heads on the board that you probably can't see. Creative project, I think, is one we are very interested in, but one that we want to be fully knowledgeable about before we approve this. Our number one mandate is to protect our groundwater basin, and so I think we need to move slowly on this and have all the information before us before we approve it.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you.
And I have one other question for point
John,
of information.
go ahead.
We've got this, I'm going on the record, this is a great project. I mean, I'm all for this type of stuff, and the board is just being responsible. Right now we have large spreading ponds. Is the plan is to bank those up and to make, to stack the water? Is that the correct assessment? Like the other water banking?
Yeah, the wastewater will be put into this series of percolation ponds, and there's a map that is incorporated into the Rosamond's report that they provided to us, and I'm sorry it didn't make your packet, but you might just take a quick look at that. That's on the Watermaster website, and that provides information on the size and the locations of those ponds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Any other questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item D, groundwater banking and recovery storage application, Little Rock Creek Irrigation District. Phyllis?
Yes, thank you. So this is the second storage agreement that I am recommending that we consider for approval at the next board meeting. This project is something that I know that Little Rock Creek Irrigation District has been working on for some time and trying to put together. I think that the first time that James told me about it, it was my second meeting with the Watermaster. So I know that this is something that they've been putting together for a while. This project is on Little Rock Creek. It's a recharge basin. Many of you may know already where that facility is. It's a 1.5 or 1.25 acre bermed recharge facility just off of Little Rock Creek near the aqueduct. Little Rock Creek has obviously Table A contract for state water as well as a turnout at this area, so it's a good place for getting water into the ground. They are requesting approval for about 4 to 8 acre feet a day over a 100-day time period, bringing in water as it's available from September through December into that recharge basin. Our concerns and issues that we wanted to look at for this project were several. One was the potential for liquefaction, especially near the California aqueduct. Other issues that we considered were also the interaction of this recharged water, imported water, with natural recharge along Little Rock Creek. Of course, as you know, Little Rock Creek, along with a couple of other drainage ways, provides a tremendous amount of natural recharge into the basin, and we don't want a new recharge project to interfere in any way with natural recharge. In other words, we wanted to make sure that that natural recharge did not prevent the project from storing water, and that the stored water did not prevent recharge from occurring from a natural system. So that interaction was something that we considered. I think we are good here with respect to the depth to water. The permeability of the creek has not been measured directly, but it is obvious from the amount of water that is recharged along that creek bed. So I think that everything looks good from a hydrogeologic standpoint with respect to the project not interfering with the natural recharge of the stream. The project should, however, be monitored, and Little Rock Creek Irrigation District has agreed to do so. They have a well right at the berm. That well has some problems right now. They're working on it to ensure that it could be a proper monitoring well. And I spoke with James this week about that, and that's ongoing and occurring now. So the total amount of recharge associated with the project is up to about 400 acre feet a year. As far as we can tell from the hydrogeologic conditions, it looks as if the groundwater system can accept that and that there's room for that to occur. So with those sort of general conditions, as well as the requirement that the project be monitored both from a mounding standpoint as well as a downstream flow standpoint, we feel comfortable that the project would not create any issues of material injury. There is a granite quarry downstream, and I know that Little Rock Creek Irrigation District and Granite Construction has been in contact with one another about monitoring and working together to make sure that there are no impacts associated with the project with regards to that. So with that summary, I will ask if there are any questions and if anybody has any other concerns about the project.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Ed.
Can you explain a little bit about the impact of the natural the interference between the natural recharge and artificial recharge, if you would. I don't understand what that will do. If there is
Okay, yeah, sure. So the recharge basin is so close to the creek that we're going to cause mounding beneath the creek bed.
Okay.
And if the depth to water were already high in that area, then there could be what we call rejected recharge. For example, if there is a certain amount of storage room in the vadose zone between the water table and the surface there, and we filled that up with the state water that we're recharging with this project, then there would not be additional room in the subsurface for the natural recharge to occur. However, given that this is a small amount of water, this 400 acre feet, we've determined that we think not only is there room, but even if the natural recharge came at a time when there was mounding beneath this small portion of the creek, we have a long trajectory of this drainage way to affect recharge. So it might move some of the recharge a little bit further downstream, not a lot further, but a little bit further downstream. And it looks to us as if there's plenty of room downstream, given that this project is relatively small. So that's one way that the project could potentially interfere with the natural recharge, although, as I've just mentioned, I don't think that's going to occur. The second interaction that we would want to think about is whether or not the opposite happened, whether or not the natural recharge would consume all of the room associated with the area and prevent infiltration of the project. And so we would want to be able to know that the water is actually getting down, and it might be available and being recharged at a time period when there's a lot of natural recharge occurring as well. And that's why we think it's very important to monitor, make sure that we can make sure that there's enough room beneath the recharge basin to allow for infiltration of the water. So those are the two types of interaction that I think that I was just wanting to consider when we look at a project such as this.
Is the September through December timeframe of recharge is the only period that the recharge can take place? Can it be done, say, early spring into the summer?
Well, this is when Little Rock Creek can get raw state water. It's usually when that water is available, and so they think they have a much better opportunity of getting water. As everyone is concerned about the state water availability to decline, and not only will the amounts potentially be less, but what the timing of when they would be available are changing. I'm sure you know a lot more about this. Everybody in the room probably knows a lot more about this than I do, but I think that this is the time period that they feel like that they have worked, and they've worked with DWR for at least a couple of years now. They finally got DWR out on location to look at this project and approve it just as of yesterday, I think James said. And so they're timing this when they really believe that this water would be available.
But isn't this table A water?
Yes, it is table A water, but again, they're just looking at when they feel like that they have the best opportunity of getting it. The other thing to think about is this: most of the natural recharge is actually going to occur January through March, associated with the snow melt in San Gabriel. So I think that the timing works out okay with respect to the natural recharge peaks as well.
Okay. Great. I think a very creative project, and looking forward to see how it goes. Phyllis, you know that the Antelope Valley State Water Contractors, which includes Little Rock, is working on a similar project for Big Rock Creek. So this will be a very good test of that project, I would assume. Is that correct?
Agreed, yes.
Yeah. So, great project. Let's looks like we're getting a consensus with
Yes.
yes, go forward, and I guess this will come back at our next meeting for approval.
Yes, we hope so. We're, you know, these are legal agreements. As Craig will tell you, they take a little time.
And just congratulate Little Rock Irrigation District and James for your hard work on this, and looking forward to see it get pushed off, so good job. Okay, we're on item E now, Antelope Valley Water Contractors Association Replacement Water Agreement, and that's staff report. Peter?
All right, before you have the agreement between Allen Valley Watermaster and Allen Valley State Water Contractors for the purchase and provision of the replacement water. Taking a step back, the Watermaster Board has previously approved the fees for that replacement water through Navy State Water Contractors. This is an agreement to set up the time frame and structure for Watermaster to request that imported water for replacement and to turn over the funds for the replacement water fees to Navy State Water Contractors. I would like to draw your attention to the second page, items B3 and B4. Admin staff took into account the advisory committee's recommendations and amended through B3 to include that Antelope Valley State Water Contractors will confer with the Watermaster on where that water is spread, the imported water is spread, and the most appropriate place for replacement. And then also B4, that this agreement will terminate at the end of ramp down and we'll revisit it at that time. With that, I'm Matt, if you have to answer any questions.
Great, thanks. Any questions for you?
Just why does it need to be terminated at the end of the ramp down, Peter?
I believe, actually, I'll turn this one over to Matt.
Excuse me. I believe the thought process behind this is that we recognize at the end of the 7-year ramp down period that things may be in a different position for the basin. There may be other options for recharging the basin, and we just want to leave it open for further discussion at that time and not lock it into a long-term agreement.
Can I just mention to the board that I was aware the advisory committee had substantial discussion about this and received comments. And I'd like the opportunity, if you could put this over a month, to look at the agreement again and see, maybe the language is fine, but I've seen the amended language this morning. I'd like a chance to think about some of the other issues that have been raised.
Okay.
My question is, rather than terminate, should we use the word reevaluate?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Terminate's pretty permanent. Reevaluate gives us some flexibility. It's just something for the board to think about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Then the agreement can continue until it's reevaluated, and instead of just terminate at a certain date, and now we don't have one.
If needed, we could just amend it if things change.
Did everybody agree, Jim?
Yeah. Good idea.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it should also allow the board the flexibility to explore other options besides this is just one option. Not that we have any options right now. This is the only option we have. But to the extent that, like you said, we can allow the board to look for other source of supply.
Exactly.
This doesn't restrict us to doing business with the state water private contractors totally, does it?
No, it doesn't. And it's even listed in the judgment that, you know, the Watermaster can work with the State Water Contractor Association or the 3 state water contractors within the valley, or look at other options, because there may be other options out there.
So as long as that flexibility is built into this agreement, we can reevaluate it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
That, but we'll see.
Yeah, the Watermaster is not locked into just going to this source.
Right. Because at one point, we may have opportunities to end up either leasing or buying groundwater rights and using that for replacement water.
Right.
Which would be a much more cost-effective way of doing things.
And I do believe that currently occurs, where people do work on transfers when we know that they're over. And that the replacement water fees only come into play after all those have come into effect.
Right, right. And don't we have a mechanism in place where people can, in other words, we're trying to match leasers and lessees for that purpose.
Yeah, we actually have that, that's up on the website now, right?
Right.
The bulletin board or clearinghouse.
Great.
Yeah, that was discussed last meeting, the transfer website. Yeah, I'll bring back any comments for next month.
Great. Everyone's good? Okay, moving on. We're on item F, 2020-21 scope of work, staff report.
Okay, this one, there was nothing included in your board packet, but we had a good meeting this morning with Directors Zawicki and Atkinson to go through what staff is proposing for the 2020 and 2021 calendar year's scope of work. So now that we've got some concurrence from the little ad hoc committee that we formed, we are going to reach out to the Watermaster engineer and have Phyllis and her team review that scope of work and submit a proposal based on that scope of work. And then we would bring that back or bring it to the advisory committee in April or in October, and hopefully to the full board at the October meeting. So that's the plan currently with the 2020 and 21 scope of work.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Now we're on item G, rules and regulations update. Phyllis?
This is my least favorite part of the agenda because I don't have a lot to report. We are out of budget. We had not anticipated a lot of what occurred on the annual report, and as a result of that, if we moved forward on rules and regulations today, we would have no money left for the remainder of the year at all. So we're going to be working with staff on the scope of work and the request from the ad hoc committee on the prioritization, and we will have to get back to you on schedule for rules and regulations.
And Matt, or do we have the flexibility to move some budget funds to?
Yeah, we do, and that's what we're going to propose with Phyllis, is
Okay.
to do an amendment
Okay.
and bring that back at the October meeting for consideration.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? And administrators report?
So just real quick, we're quickly approaching the holiday schedule here, and as you know, with Thanksgiving and Christmas falling really close to our scheduled meetings. So we propose having our regular meeting in October. That'll be October 23rd, same time and place. There would be no meeting in the month of November. And then we would have a special meeting in early December, on December 4th. And no meeting on December 5th, Christmas. So kind of shifting the meeting schedule a little bit. And we just wanted to put that out there, get concurrence from the board, and make sure that the public is aware of our meeting schedule.
When would our normal meeting be in December?
December 25th.
You can come
What else
out.
is going to take over?
Would there be an objection to having the meeting on the 18th, December 18th,
In lieu of the 4th.
in lieu of the 4th? Because I already have scheduled and will not be able to be here on the 4th, but I'm free on the 18th.
I think that's good with staff.
I need to ask Derek. Derek, if I'm traveling on the 18th, are you available?
Oh, yeah.
I'm good. I can make the 18th.
Okay. Let me move the 4th to the, thank you, Board, I appreciate that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Phyllis, Watermaster Engineers report.
Nothing more to report, thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 11, General Counsel's report.
Here's some items of information for you. First, on meter compliance, page 118 of your packet gives an update by staff about where we are on meter compliance. I can report discussions with Wagus Land, the Gun Club, and metering. They inform me that they've metered. We don't have the documentation, and we'll follow up with that. But that's exciting news. The Derrick update, that is the settlement with Becky Derrick, is still not been performed. We're waiting to see how that's going to be effectuated. The settlement agreement provided that it would be done 15 days after the agreement was executed. And there's been a couple of hiccups in terms of the transfer process for that. So we'll keep that as an update, but at some point, she's under some, I think, some substantial real estate pressure to get this closed one way or the other, either by transfer or by paying the amount of replacement water assessment due. The status of SCI's motion to intervene, recall that Joshua Memorial Park, they are teeing up a motion to intervene. They are a non-party to the judgment. They want to be recognized as a party with the production right. We've agreed to stipulate to allow them to intervene to bring the motion, but we'll see whether the motion has items in it that we want to object to or any other party may object to. We don't have a hearing date yet, but they are awaiting Judge Comar's calendar to see, so I should have a date at the next meeting when that motion intervene will take place. D, the update on known producers pumping outside the judgment. I've had communications with counsel for one of the parties that has got a substantial amount of pumping outside the terms of the judgment. Presented to them our position about what they owe compared to what they think they owe. Counsel's been out of the country. I don't think counsel left the country because of my letter. But he's been unavailable for the last couple of weeks and told me that that was going to be the case. So I look forward to having an update with some meaningful substance in terms of what their position is on replacement water assessment. The memorandum on unanimous voting just summarizes what I've advised you on the last couple of meetings, that you obviously have a fiduciary duty to the Watermaster, to the judgment, to effectuating the goals and purposes of the judgment. The judgment does not allow you to act in your own personal self-interest, but that we have a fiduciary duty as board members to act in the best interest of the basin and all parties. And the fact that there's a veto power effectively negates the oppression of a unanimous vote being shoved down somebody or somebody voting for purely self-interest reasons. Also, there's that memo notes there's de novo review by the court of any challenge of your decision. The court is to give no weight to the Watermaster Board's decision. It can look at that completely unaffected by what you've done and determine if somebody is voting with an improper motive or refusing to join a unanimous vote because of improper reasons. The remedy is really with the court at that point. So the memo is just reflective of what we've discussed the last couple of meetings and articulates that. I mentioned Nancy Barnett, the president of 40th Street Mutual Water Company, met with me this morning. She has a letter that she'd like you to see. I'll distribute it to you after the meeting. They are a mutual water company that is a defaulted party. They were made aware of that in the last few weeks. It's one of those situations where they don't have any knowledge or record of being informed of the litigation. We've been through this before. We know Judge Comar's attitude about parties like this, but she's acted in good faith to bring it to your attention. Is hoping that there will be some flexibility in how the board responds to their predicament. But they are a defaulted party, they're a party to the judgment, they don't need to intervene, they need to pay replacement water assessment for 2018. The amount of water being used is fairly minimal, around 20 acre feet, so it's an 8,000 plus change, $9,000 bill. And pursuant to the board's direction in previous situations like this, it was recommended that we work on payment terms if appropriate, but that the board didn't have the flexibility to waive replacement water assessment. So my approach to her and with staff's help on this is to walk her through the steps. She probably would make an application for new production and go through the replacement water assessment payment of the past water used in 2018. Because they are party to the judgment, presumably they have the benefit of the 8.3's ramp down amnesty for 2 years. But I would like to negotiate with Mutual to get them, make sure they're metered, make sure they pay replacement water assessment at the appropriate time, and that the arrangement with them going forward is clearly documented. But I'll make her letter available to you. She, I'll have to say, very distraught over the situation. They have 13 homes involved in this mutual, and they're all in complete shock that this is the situation. So while I understand that, I also reminded her that we have a long list of people who think that they should have been better informed about the nature of litigation, but were defaulted anyway. And ultimately, if they don't want to comply with the terms of the judgment or our recommendations, they have an appeal to the court. But I think we're all pretty clear what Judge Comar's attitude is about defaulted parties. So that's just an item of information. I plan with staff's help, and they've already been communicating with her to tell her of our approach to these kinds of problems with defaulted parties who owe replacement water assessment going forward. But I'll make her letter dated today available to you. And again, she's been very forthright. After she's learned and got our letter about pumping outside the terms of the judgment, I think she contacted Patty, the staff, rapidly, came in good faith today, and was very distraught about how much money they may owe and their ability to pay it. But I told her that we have considered in the past reasonable payment terms to make this work. So that's my update.
How many acre feet of water rights?
They have none.
Oh, I think it's
They're defaulted party. They have no right to produce groundwater, and they pursuant to the judgment.
And can you explain to me what a default?
They got notice of the lawsuit and decided not to participate, and therefore they are listed in the judgment. I confirmed it after talking to her that they are listed in the judgment as a defaulted party.
And that's why you said they were a party.
Yes, they're a party to the
That's
judgment.
what I was confused
Yeah, they
about.
don't need to intervene. They are a party, but they don't have a production right unless this board grants them one, and it's done pursuant to a new production application, presumably. She may be able to get transfer water to pay that 2018 replacement water assessment. Staff will work with her on that. I think that's a real possibility. There's definitely hope. I let her know there's people with a lot larger replacement water assessment obligation than the mutual has. So the good news is it's approximately $10,000 replacement water assessment, which should be payable.
So does the Watermaster board have the legal authority to actually allow them
Well,
water rights?
pursuant to a new production application, you would grant them the right to pump a certain amount of water subject to the conditions that you will put on that, namely payment of replacement water assessment.
Oh,
So there's not going to be any net
Any
effect
free
on the basin, no free lunch.
so
There's no
that has to
production.
be done through court, right?
That's right.
Okay, any further discussion? on item 12, board members' request for future agenda items. John, Dennis, Adam, Kathy. I have one. We're starting to see a lot of transfers, and Greg, transfers of water or transfer of property rights. And I would just like you to look closer at what our procedures are and make sure that the way these transfers are being done be close to how real estate transfers are being done, to make sure that their security to this board is very close to that.
I understand there's can be concern that the transaction is as explicit and carefully worded and verified as necessary to protect the board going forward. And I will look at that and give you some recommendations for next month.
That'd be great. And specifically in Exhibit 4, you have different entities, business entities that have water rights, and I don't know how much we're looking into who are the owners of the business entities as we're doing transfers, so I'd like to focus on that.
Okay, shall do.
And we'll just put that on the next agenda and have a report.
Shall do.
That'd be great. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. And our next meeting will be October 23rd. Future, I think at that board meeting, we're going to talk about the potential tertiary line on 50th Street, and we're going to do a presentation on that. And
That's the plan. I've reached out to LA County Sanitation District,
And they will be here for that.
Prepared for that meeting.
That'll be great. Okay. So nothing else. We're adjourned before 11 o'clock.
Good job.